and welcome. My name is Amir and today we're going to create the Candy Crush game using React. Candy Crush is a popular game and it consists of a grid that is covered with various colors or candies. And we are going to form a chain of 3 or more identical candies. And this happens by moving one of the candies to the neighboring positions. So here I can move this green one to the right and then form a chain of 3 consecutive green candies. And when this happens, these will blast out and this place will be empty and 3 random candies will fall from top into the empty space that we provided here. We could also have a chain of 4 or 5. So for example here, if I move this red one to here, I will have a chain of 4. So let's go and create the game. First, I have defined 2 constants here. One is the width, 8. I would consider my grid to be an 8 by 8, so I define it here. And then the colors, which are the colors of the candies, they are defined here. Then I would go to my app and we try to create the board first. So I would define a function here. We will have an array of the colors or candies. It's of type string. By the way, I'm using TypeScript, so I need to properly type my variables here. And this is going to be a new array of the size width times width. So it will be imported here. And I'm using a 1D array because this makes life easier for me when I want to map through the whole array later on. Then I would fill it with empty string and then map each of the items to a random color. That can happen like this. The colors that we have here on the constant, one of these ones. And in the end, I need to return the colors. So let's create a state to keep the value that is passed here. We can call it candies, grid or whatever. I would go with candies and then set candies. We would use the state from React and it's an empty string. I need to type this one as well. It's going to be a string array. Great. And this is candies. And here I would have a use effect that when the component renders for the first time, it would create the grid for me. So I would say that new grid is create grid. Then I would set the candies accordingly. Set candies to the new grid. Or we can have it like this, which is in one go. And then we need to set the dependency array only runs once. Great. Now I need to map it and see it here. So when I have the app, I can say candies dot map each of them to a let's say span for now with the value of x. And let's go and see what we have. If I go here, I would get a bunch of colors here. So I would open my console here. I will get an error which will fix in a moment. And if I go to the components, app, I can see that all the 64 colors are here. Great. I didn't use any index. So let's give the index here as well. And let's type it properly to say this is a candy. And here let's give it a div like so and set the index here to no and then have some class name like so, which will be the candy. And let's wrap all of these in another div so that I can place it in the center. So div class name of, let's say, board. Like so, and move it down like so. Let's go write some CSS here. I would just copy paste it here. So for app, I would use the flex, place it in the center and say the height is like 100 of the viewport. Then for the board, I would use the grid system and I would say it's a grid of 8 of the same size and 8 of the same size here, because we are having the grid of 8 by 8. And then also for each of the div inside that board, which is all of these candies, I would define them to be 80 by 80 and the background size should be covered. And you will see why I'm using this for in a minute. Then for each of these div, based on the color that is passed along here, we need to have a background image. All the images are already placed here in the public.images, and we need to use them here in the index.css. For the blue, get the blue, orange, get the orange, and so forth and so on. So let's close this and go to the app, and voila, we have the grid in the place here. Fantastic. And if I refresh, every time I get a new grid. Now the next step is that if we look at the Candy Crush, in the beginning there is no chain of 3, 4 or 5. But if we look at here, we have a bunch of 4s, a bunch of 3s that we need to get rid of in the beginning. So let's go and fix that one. I need to have a variable here to store the grid that is being created. So let's create new candies. Is this one. And then set it to new candies. Everything the same, but in the middle I'm going to check the new candies and remove the duplicates. So remove the chains, so to say. So remove chains, pass along the new candies to it. And of course I need to write this function. So let's go here, say const. By the way, I can close this and make this a bit bigger so it's much more visible. Let's say remove chains is a function. It would get a candies array, which is of type string array. I would go and say let next candies, which means the next generation of the candies, is the candies that we currently have. Let's call this one current candies, so we don't mix it with this one. Current candies, and then the next candies will be passed to a function which will check the columns like so, and in the end we can return the next candies. Great. Now we need to write this function. It will get a input like this. Now checking the column is a bit tricky. So first I would go from here and check if this is equal to this, to this, to this, and to this, if we have a chain of 5. If that's the case, remove them. Then go to here, 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 and all the way down to here. I can check this one for 5, check this one for 5, but when we get here, we don't need to check this one for a chain of 5 because it has 3 candies below it. So from here to here, we check for 5. Then from here to here, we check for 4. From here to here, we check for 3. So let's go and do that in the columns. So I need a for loop, obviously, that will run from the, let's say, 0 until it is less than width times width, and I'm checking for the chains of 5 minus 4. So I need to go from here down to here, and since I'm using the equal sign -1 so that I don't check this one and I stop here, and we would add 1 to it. Now if the current candies at that location is already empty, then we need to continue. We don't care. I don't need this one. So if not current candies I, then continue. Otherwise, if the current candies at index I equals to the next one and next one and next one is equal to current candies at index I plus width, and also 4 other checks that we will write here. Here is times 2, here is times 3, and here is times 4 to go to the next row, next row, and next row. If we get to this, don't need the and sign here. If we get to this, we need to remove all of those. So the current candies at index I will be empty. The same will go for all of these. So I will grab them and put them down here like this. All of these are empty, and this one will be empty as well. Great. So let's go and check that. Here in the candies, I can say the candies, or the colors, sorry, the colors at index 0 is green, and the same for 8, let's say 16, 24, and 32. And we need to return it here. Beauty of using the TypeScript errors us that we didn't return anything. Great. Let's go here, and you can see they are empty. Great. So we need to do this for chain of 4 and chain of 3. It would be the same thing and the same thing. So for the chain of 4, we would have it like this, and I can remove this part, I can remove this part, and for chain of 3, we can remove these two and these two. Fantastic. Now let's go and see. A chain of 3 has removed here, and the chain of 5 has removed here. Fantastic. For rows, it's kind of the same thing with a bit of change. So let's go here, copy this, and go here, and say this is check row. Let me include it so that I don't forget. Check row. And for the row, we need to go from here down to here, and we would skip these ones when we are checking for 5s. So from here down to here minus this much. So up to width, and then minus 5. If it's empty again, we would skip it. Now we need to check if we are here, and we need to skip for the chain of 5. So another if, and now we would check the placement. We would say that if I divided by the width, and let's put it in parentheses, add 5 to it, if that is greater than the width, then we are here. So for example, if we are in 13, we divide it by 8, get the remainder, so we would get to 5. So for all of these, it's the same thing. We are at 13, which would give us, this part would give us 5. We add 5 to it, it would be 10, and it's already greater than 8. So we don't need to check that for the row. So if this is the case, then we need to continue. Otherwise, we need to check. Now, here we would check with the next one and with the next one. If that's the case, then 1 here and 2, 3, 4 are all empty. So that I don't mix anything, I would copy and paste it here and then change it. So for the second one, it would be obviously -4. 4 here. We don't need to check this part. We don't need to have this part. For this one, it's 3, and this is 3, and we don't need these, and we don't need these two. Great. So now we have checked the columns and we have checked the rows. Let's go and see up. A chain of 3 has been removed. Great. Let me go here and remove this part as well. We don't want that anymore. Fantastic. Now, as you can see, we have some empty space that we need to fill. So we need to drop these down. So when we remove the chains and get the next candies, oh, already by the way, we have the remove chains here that is being used in this use effect. So we need to have it in the dependency array. So let's have it here. And since we are having it here, we need to call this in the use callback. So we would do it like this and like so. So if you want to know more about the use callbacks or other hooks in React, I have a complete tutorial on those hooks. Please go and check those ones and find out why we are using the use callback here. Okay, so when we check the rows and check the columns, we need to remove the, move down the candies. So something like this will go here, and then we would say move down. And we need to obviously define it. So it's something like this. Let's call it move down. It would get the current set of candies. So how does this move down work? The thing that comes to my mind is that I would scan through the grids and check if I am in the first row, so from this one to this one. If I am here and one of these is empty, I need to fill it with a candy. And then for the entire grid, if I get to a case where the one below me is empty, I need to replace myself with the one below me. So in this case, I would go here, this would come down, get to here, this would come down, which is this one, and then this yellow will land here. In the next run, this will be empty. A candy will be created here. Then I would check that this one is empty. So the candy that is created here will go down, down, and in the next run, 1, and then down. So I need to run this until there is no empty space. So I would say that for all the candies that I have, so going from 0 to the width times width equals to this one. I would check if it's it, if we are in the first row or not. So is first row. This will happen when I is less than the width that we have. Now we need to use this one. So I would say that if we are in the first row and the cell is empty, then we need to say that the current candies at that index is a new candy. The same thing that we had here. Where was I? Here. That's enough. Now I need to check the one below it. So if the current candies at index I plus the width, this one is empty, we need to swap those two. So I would say current candies at that index is going to be what we have here, the current candies at index I, and the current candies at index I will be empty. And when we are done, we need to return the current candies. Fantastic. Let's go and see. So yeah, as you can see, this is working. So these two has been created here. But we need to continue this and pushing these down. So in the remove chains, this needs to go inside the while loop until there is no empty space. So I would say while true, and I need a condition to break out of this, of course. We would say that next candies is the current. We would check. So current candies, every item of that, let's say candy, and the index, this candy is the same as the next candies at index I. If this happens, return the candies, and this should be like this. Otherwise, the current candies will be the next candies, and let's do it like this, and we would continue until we get to a state where everything is the same as before. We need to skip this suggestion from the ESLint, so I would do it like this, and then if I go, I can see that now every time that I refresh, I get a maximum of 2 chains. There is no 3 or 4 or 5 chains. Fantastic. So now we are getting in the beginning of playing the game. We need to let the user switch place of each candy with the one next to it. So for example, 13 can be switched with this one, this one, this one, or this one. 15 with only 3. So, and we are using a 1D array, so 15 should not be able to be switched with 16. So all of this should be a draggable item. So let's go and do that here. Let me give myself a bit of room here. Say this is draggable, and then we need to have a bunch of event listeners for this draggable item. We have on drag start. Say this is drag start. We have a few more. On drag start, we have on drag over that we need to skip. This one means that an element is being dragged over a drop target. So we don't want to do that. So I would just say prevent default behavior that I will define. Would do the same for on drag enter, which means that we enter an element that is droppable. We have on drag leave when we are leaving a droppable candy. So for all of this we need to skip. We have on drag drop, which this one we need when a drop happens. So let's call this drag drop, and then on drag end when the end of the dragging happens. This function is pretty simple. This will get an E that we will type in a minute, but the only thing that it does is just prevent default, like so. And this E is of type the drag event of HTML div element. Let's see, div element, like so. And I'm getting an error. This drag event is coming from the React. So I need to have it like this. Let me see. Yeah, it's coming from the React. Great. So I have this one. I need to define these three. So let's grab these and define them one after each other. All of them are constant. All of them are functions that would get an event and would trigger something. And the event for all of them, I believe, is the same. So we will see. And I'm getting an error because I probably not using them. Yes, okay. So on drag start, the only thing that we need to do is to know which item is being dragged. So we need to keep track of that one. So I need to define a state here for the one that is being dragged. So let's say dragging and set the dragging. This is a use state. And we are passing a index here, so it should be -1 in the beginning, and then we can say this will always receives a number. While here, let's define 1 for the dropping as well, so that we know what we drag and where we drop it. Set dropping. And I'm using -1 to see that in the beginning we are not dragging anything. This -1 means that. Okay, let's go here. When the drag start happens, we need to set that one. So we can say set dragging to something, to the E. Get the ID from this one that is being dragged. So I need to say it here. For example, data.id is the index, or we can say data.index is the index, but does that make any difference? So here should be e.current target, and then we need to get the attribute of the data-id. And we get an error because this is a string and we accept a number, so should run this into the number function and everything is fine now. For the undropping, this should be the same, but we only set the dropping here. And this is 2p's. Let's log the E for now here and go and check our app. I'm getting an error here. These two are not being used. So for now, let me remove them. If we go here, and let's go to the components. Both of them are -1. So if I drag, you can see it's 38 now. And if I drop it here, it would be 63. Great. So I'm getting the dragging and dropping values here. So let's go and work with them. Now, when the I don't want this, so let me close this. And now here in the drag end. Here, let's first check for the next cell. Are we actually moving to the dropping on the next cell or not? So I would say that is it next cell? And this would happen if dropping, I removed the state from here, so let me add them back because we are going to need them. Dragging and dropping here. If the dropping is dragging -1, or it's the next one, or it's the one above it, or the one below it. So this means that we have dropped on the next cell. So from here to here, 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 here. But this will not cover going from 15 to 16. So we need to cover that one as well. So I would have another state here so that this doesn't become too complicated. I would say invalid right edge if the dragging divide by the width is the same as width -1. So we are dragging from here and we're dropping on here. And the dropping is the dragging, if I can type it, +1. Okay? So if we start from here and drop here, or start from 40 and drop on 39. We also have the invalid left edge. Happens when the dragging divided by width is 0 and dropping is dragging -1. So we start from here and we go here. Sorry, I did it the other way around. So this one means that we are dragging from here to here. Now, it will be valid if all of these cases are true. So, valid is when it's a next cell and it's not invalid left edge and it's not invalid right edge. Then we can continue. Otherwise, we need to forget about everything. So, if it's a valid drag, then we need to do a few things. We need to swap these two. We need to, for example, if I go from here to here, we need to swap these two and then check the columns and then check the rows to see if a match of 3 or 4 has happened or not, or 5 has happened or not. If that has not happened, then it's not a valid drag anymore. So if I go from here and move this one to down, then there is no match of 3 anywhere in the grid. So this is not a valid move. So I would go and say the new candies is the old one. Then we would swap the places of those two. So the new candies at index dragging and new candies at index dropping shall be the opposite of each other. This should be dropping and this should be dragging. I need to do it like this so that it doesn't try to fix my code. Okay. Then we need to check the columns and check the rows. So new candies is the check column that we already have of the new candies, and then check the row. After these two checks, if nothing has been removed from the grid system, then it was not a valid drag, so we need to return. We won't do anything. So if, let me put it in a new line like this, if the new candies, we can filter for the empty one here. So say filter X and not X. So if there is no empty space, which means that nothing has been removed, and the length is 0, means that we didn't make any 3, 4, 5 in the row or column. So we just return as if nothing has happened. Otherwise, something has happened, some rows or columns has been removed. Then we would set the candies to the new candies. We only do this, and then we would act based on the new candies and fill the grid with the new colors. So I'm getting an error. Yeah, I don't need these here. That's the beauty of using TypeScript. It gives us error when we don't need to have anything, or we define something inappropriately. So let's go here, refresh. Now if I drag this and put it here, it will stay the same. Go here and go here, same. Go here and here, nothing happens. If I go here and put it here, great, it removes this. Now I need to do the thing that I did with the creating the board. So we can have a effect here that will run every time that the candies array change, and the candies array will only change when we do a valid drag here. That's the only place that we set the candies. Actually, we do set the candies here as well in the first use effect that we have here. Where is it? Here. We set the candies and this will be run, but that is not relevant. So here we need to have some kind of simple animation. So I would have a set timeout that will run like 100 milliseconds. Then I need to have a new generation of the candies. Check for the column, check for the row, move them down. If they are not the same, repeat. If they are the same, it's fine. Set the candies and go out. So let me see. We would say new candies. Again, is the old candies. And now we are using the candies from the state. So it's fine. Then the new candies shall be run to the check column of the new candies and the check row, and then the move down. And when all of this done, we need to check if it is being changed or not. So if the new candies, every item, just like we did it before, let's say candy and index, if the candy is the same as the candies and the state at index I, if that's the case, then we need to return. So, and this should be index because we are using index here, and otherwise Let me put this inside the brackets like this. Otherwise, we need to set the candies to the new candies. Great. Now the purtier is happy as well. And great. So this will run when the candies has changed. Would come here, we would set a timeout and then run this part and set the candies. When the candies has set, we would again run this, but this time the new candies is the same as the old one, so it wouldn't set this. Okay, now let's go and play. Move it here. Fantastic. Awesome. Let's have a chain of 5. Great. Let's put this one here. Fantastic. This one here. Great. Now we have a game of Candy Crush. Great. So this is about it for the Candy Crush game. I hope you have enjoyed the video. You can add anything to it like scoring and other stuff. I hope you have enjoyed the video. The code to the Candy Crush is in my GitHub channel and the link is in the description if you want to go and check it. Have a great day and see you in the next video.